February 28, 2026. Global media is losing its collective mind over Operation Epic Fury. The news anchors are sweating in their studios. The chyrons flash bright red across your screen. Headlines scream the casualty count with breathless, frantic energy. 11 core Iranian warships, wiped off the face of the earth in the first 48 hours. $10 billion in military hardware, vaporized into floating slag. The media calls it a massive strategic victory. Pundits who have never worn a uniform or solved a basic physics equation look at the cameras and declare that the United States has won the day. But they don't understand the equation. They never do. They look at the fire, but they completely ignore the friction. They are entirely blind to the ruthless logistics that made those explosions physically possible. To understand those logistics, you have to look at the trap the enemy built for us. For 30 years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps prepared for this exact conflict. They knew they couldn't compete in a traditional industrial arms race, so they built their trap with asymmetric mathematics. They amassed over 1,500 composite fast attack craft, stealth midget submarines, and an aerial armada of suicide drones. The plan was a calculus of absolute saturation. Drag the United States fleet into a maritime choke point, attack the waterline with boats, and swarm the radar arrays with drones. They wanted to exhaust the Aegis combat system, forcing us to trade $2 million interceptor missiles for cheap plastic targets. Bleed the magazines dry before the real fight even started. But the trap never sprang. There was no bloody close-quarters firefight on the water. The drone swarms never clouded the sky. The entire high-speed armada died before they could even draw their weapons. How do you neutralize 1,500 boats running at 65 knots and hundreds of flying bombs without chasing a single one of them? How does the United States Navy wipe out 11 major warships without giving the enemy a chance to see the silhouette of our hulls? Today, we ignore the political speeches. We look at the geometry of the battle space. We dissect the merciless calculus of the kill chain. We look at the thermodynamic reality of modern naval warfare. If you prefer the ruthless logic of American engineering over the empty noise of political theater, hit the proud button, subscribe, and let's get to work. To understand the slaughter, you have to look away from the guns and look at the fuel reserve. How do you dismantle a trap consisting of 1,500 attack boats, ripping across the water at 65 knots, and hundreds of suicide drones preparing to swarm? Amateurs pull the trigger. They try to match speed with speed. They engage in a desperate race to the bottom of the attrition curve, hoping they simply have more bullets than the enemy has targets. We are engineers. We don't shoot the weapons. We aim for their stomach. Take a supercar as an example. Its engine generates unbelievable horsepower. But at top speed, with the throttle wide open, it burns its entire fuel reserve in exactly 12 minutes. 12 minutes of glory. But without a constant supply line, that multi-million-dollar machine is just an expensive paperweight on the side of the road. Iran's composite boats and drone swarms face this exact paradox. They have the speed and they have the volume, but they are absolute prisoners of physics. Pushing 65 knots on water is not like flying through the air. Water is roughly 800 times denser than the atmosphere. Think about driving a tactical vehicle at 60 knots and sticking your hand out the window. The air pushes back, but you can hold your arm steady. Now imagine sticking your hand out of a speedboat into the water at that exact same speed. The density of the water would snap your wrist instantly. That is hydrodynamic friction. Moving through water at 65 knots is a brutal, violent wrestling match against the ocean itself. To overcome that massive wall of water resistance, you need massive engines. Massive engines require massive amounts of fuel. Fuel adds weight to the hull. Weight pushes the hull deeper into the water, which in turn increases the surface area dragging against the ocean. It is a vicious, inescapable cycle of thermodynamic penalty. Because of this, the operational range of these fast attack craft is pathetically short. The suicide drones face the exact same physical constraint. To reach the United States fleet in deep water, those Shaheed-style munitions require heavy launch catapults and massive fuel reserves. They don't magically spawn in the middle of the ocean. For this two-tiered swarm to extend its tentacles into the open water, it must be chained to a logistical umbilical cord. Let's follow that cord. Look at the other end of the tether. You will find the INS Macron. It started its life as a commercial crude oil tanker. Now, it is 121,000 tons of double-hulled steel. It's a floating refueling hub, a lumbering ammo dump. It is the only beating heart keeping thousands of attack boats alive offshore, holding millions of gallons of marine diesel. Right next to it sits the IRIS Shaheed Bagheri, another converted commercial behemoth, boasting a 787-foot angled flight deck. It is a floating hive, packed to the brim with hundreds of suicide drones, the launch pad for the aerial nightmare. These massive, slow-moving ships are the Achilles heel of the entire 30-year asymmetric strategy. Do the math. Kill the heart. The limbs rot. Sever this 121,000-ton stomach, and the energy equation collapses instantly. Sink the INS Macron, and 1,500 boats automatically stall out. Sink the 787-foot flight deck of the Bagheri, and hundreds of drones burn in their crates before they ever spin a propeller. The killer swarm instantly turns into drifting, lifeless tombs in the Gulf of Oman. But knowing where the heart is doesn't mean you can reach it. To kill a 121,000-ton giant and a floating drone hive without getting bitten, the United States Navy had to trade the knife fight for the void. How do you smash that logistical stomach without getting tangled up with a 65-knot swarm or triggering a mass drone launch? What did the United States Navy trade to win this fight without taking a single casualty? We refuse the knife fight. We exploit the void. We call it standoff range, and the defining weapon of this battle space isn't a short-range deck gun. It's the Tomahawk cruise missile, preloaded in the VLS on Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. This weapon is the ultimate expression of distance dictating terms. It allows the United States fleet to stand hundreds of nautical miles away from the target. Look at the physics of range. The engineering trade-off here is speed for absolute distance. Look inside the hull of the Tomahawk. It doesn't use a massive rocket booster for sustained flight. After the initial launch, it deploys wings and fires up a highly efficient turbofan engine. It breathes air. It sips aviation fuel almost exactly like a commercial airliner. Because of this, it flies subsonic, roughly Mach 0.74. Everyone in the media obsesses over hypersonic missiles, but pushing an airframe to Mach 5 generates immense thermal friction and burns fuel at an astronomical rate. That severely limits your effective range. We don't need to get to the target in 3 minutes. We need to deliver a 1,000-pound warhead from 1,000 nautical miles away. By utilizing subsonic efficiency, the safety of the launch platform is absolute. Sitting on the outer edge of the battle space, the Aegis combat system completely neutralizes the enemy's tactical advantage. The enemy cannot swarm what they cannot reach. Your steel hull never enters their radar horizon.